Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, June 26th. Happy birthday, Derek Jeter. 5:16 a.m. East Coast time. Yes, it is bright and early. We're kicking it off. I am back home, ready to break down this two-game WNBA slate. Hope you are all enjoying the start to your day, morning, night, whatever it might be whenever you're watching this. Keep in mind, a reminder, if you're watching this right now, the WNBA two-game slate locks today at noon Eastern time. So if you're at work, early start, pretty cool there. Otherwise, if you're watching this afternoon, there is a showdown slate at night. My projections will be viable for that as well. So welcome to the channel. My name's Sal Vetri. I cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, MLB. We got the WNBA right here. Golf, which I'm going to hope to get around to a video today as well. NFL coming in the short month or two for the preseason, right? So I'm excited about that. Let's get down into this two-game WNBA slate. If you can hit me with a like, that helps a ton. If you can hit me with a subscribe button, that helps even more. Take 2 seconds, hit that red button on your phone. I appreciate it if you can. Take the phone out of your pocket, hit it, whatever it does, and the notification bell as well. I do want to prompt everybody that I do have WNBA projections over on my Patreon. It's linked right down below in the description. You have to just scroll a little bit. What that does is I project players' minutes, I project defensive matchups, and then ultimately the thing that matters is I project the points, the performance, the median performance. Am I going to be 100% right all the time? No. Am I going to be better than just sitting there and not using a projection system? By far, yes. Yesterday, we profited again in cash. That is 11 out of 12 nights in cash, WNBA profiting. This is what I would consider a very hot streak, but at the same time, it's not like it is going to switch to a spot where I'm going to win 1 out of 12 nights around, right? It's going to stabilize around winning more often than not because there's a projection system in the WNBA, which most people do not utilize. So that is available down below. There will also be podcasts only exclusive to the Patreons over there. It's not going to be every single day, but it will be often, multiple times a week. For WNBA, similar things are being done for the MLB. So you can check that out. Let's start it off with the injury news. So Leshia Clarendon she's been out for a couple games. She just actually got her ankle surgery, so she's out. The players that have been seeing the most impact, what it seems like from a couple of games now from her minutes, are Jasmine Thomas and then Rachel Bonham. Jasmine Thomas definitely getting a bigger bump to what I would consider elite minutes, right around 30 instead of seeing her average of low to mid 20s. So that's big news. That's where you see right here impacted players is what I should have filled in. We'll do it right now. And then you have Rachel Bonham. We'll go with that. She's seeing more so around kind of decent minutes for the price point, right? Nothing that makes her like a lock or a must play or as interesting as I would say as Jasmine Thomas, but she's still seeing, and we'll get rid of this end because it's going to drive me nuts, but she's still seeing now closer to 20 minutes instead of closer to 10 minutes, which is a big difference. Chloe Jackson, nothing major here. She's only played in 2 to 3 games this year, 6 minutes per game. She's doubtful today with an ankle. It's just something to keep in mind for Chicago. If she was to get out there, she's not like becoming an elite value play. She likely sees 10 minutes, but it's good to just note where the injuries are and keep track of everything in the WNBA because it's really hard to identify things. Now, obviously, this is the WNBA, and news is going to be tough to find. So make sure to head over to Twitter at SalVetriDFS and follow me there. If you're one of my subscribers and you've been subscribing for a while and you have a Twitter, follow me there anyways. Support me over there. I provide good content over there as well. I have a WNBA list that I'm continuing to grow. It's up to 25 accounts now. What that does is just provides information for the WNBA. Lineup news, yes. It's 5:15 in the morning and a man's revving his engine out there with his truck. Oh my God, the nerve. And then he hears me and he does it again. Holy cow. I think it's a motorcycle, actually. Damn, some people are just absolute assholes. All right, let's keep going. Target offense sheet. Not for me, I'm up. But if I was sleeping and I woke up to that, I'd be like, are you kidding me? So 2 games today, Washington, Chicago, Connecticut, Dallas. The beneficiary of having a nude game is that we have an early Vegas line, at least for the Washington-Chicago game. So this is locked in. It's a 173 total, so pretty high total here. 5.5 point spread, Washington is favored, so nothing in terms of a blowout scare. 89.2 implied total for Washington, 83.75 for Chicago. This is the game that you want to target, and it's really not even close. Let me just update the pace numbers here for these 2 teams. It's going to be indicative of pace, so pace is just possessions per game, how many times the team will have the ball in that game, how many possessions they will have, and that's better for fantasy, obviously. So you're going to get a 78.9 projected pace for Washington and Chicago. That's going to be a pretty big pump-up spot of about 2 possessions for Washington, and that's going to be a bump-down spot for about 2.5 for Chicago. Now compare that to the Connecticut and Dallas game after that. and you're getting a 74.5 pace. So 4.5 more possessions for this Washington-Chicago game. There's no line out yet for Connecticut and Dallas, but I imagine it's going to be somewhere in the 150s just due to the fact that Dallas is such a piss-poor team. They have a 73.7 pace. They are dead last in the league in terms of overall scoring, still behind Atlanta the last I checked, which was like yesterday. And they're just a terrible team. They're going to slow the pace down. And even though Connecticut is a team that does actually play up in pace, they're probably the best team in the league right now, it's going to just overall ruin the flow of the game for the Connecticut players. It doesn't mean I don't have interest in Connecticut players. Trust me, I do. There's no way that you can't have interest in the potential MVP right now, Jonquil Jones. Again, we're like a third of the way through the season, but still worth mentioning. But the Washington-Chicago game, in terms of getting the most pieces into your lineups, yeah, I would rather, if you're telling me which game would you rather stack, it's clearly that one. Which game would you rather try and build a lineup around? I try to get 4 players around that game. You can only get up to 5. You have to have one from another game. But I would try and get somewhere around 4 if it fits in terms of value, in terms of overall player salary ranges and that makeup of your lineup. So yeah, the Washington-Chicago game is going to have a high total. Each team is going to be favored in terms of scoring more points than probably each team in the Connecticut-Dallas game. The Connecticut-Dallas game, there's a lot of risk for a blowout. The actual Vegas line is not out yet. I'm pretty bad at projecting WNBA lines. I try and get in some sort of realm. But you have arguably the best team in the league facing arguably and most likely the worst team in the league today. Dallas is averaging 68 points per game. That's absolutely pitiful. Like I said, a 73 pace. I have them projected for 70 points today. I have Connecticut projected for 82, 12-point favorite. Look, I don't want to project a blowout. That's kind of what I'm projecting here. I can project Connecticut for what is probably more likely a 18 to 20-point win. But that's not what I want to do until I see these Vegas lines, and I will update them in the projections, which you, if you are a Patreon, you will get later. So before lock, don't worry about it. All the projections will be updated. All your info will be updated as well. So this is what I'm looking at, the Washington-Chicago game. By far the better game to target if you're trying to get more exposure to overall points upside and potentially a game that has a spread of 15 to 20 points more, or overall team total, game total more than the Connecticut and Dallas game. 173 total for Washington-Chicago. I'm projecting somewhere in the 150s, low to mid 150s for Connecticut-Dallas. Moving over to early interest. Let me blow this up. So once again, if you're a lot of people stumbling upon my channel, we get about, I don't know, between baseball and WNBA about maybe, there we go, that blows up nicely. We maybe get about 30 subscribers a day. Sometimes it jolts to 50. Sometimes it stays to 15. I'm excited for the NFL season because we'll be growing even more and more. So again, if you're still watching right now and you're absorbing this content, hit the subscribe button. It allows me to keep doing it for free. And what that means when you hear people say that maybe other channels and other creators, pretty much means that other people see my channel growing. They're like, ooh, let's throw an ad on Sal's channel. Give him some money. We don't have to charge you. It allows me to keep doing this for free, right? Yes, I do have a Patreon, but that's kind of just this added on bonus page of what I want to do. I want to create more content, but if I'm creating more content that's not really in a form that favors YouTube, and what I mean by that is I'm creating podcasts, one, and I'm creating written articles on Patreon, so I can't really put a written article on YouTube and just let it play through, right? So I'm trying to put it in a format that helps me kind of make this towards my career some more and also kind of get it out in different types of formats, my content. And it's actually been very nice. I've been enjoying Patreon. Thank you for everybody over there supporting me. So this is not my projections. You can see right here, I've blacked out the point per minute, the value, and the projected points because those are for people who are on Patreon. If you want to sort of unlock those, link is down below. But some of my early interest, and let's filter this like we always do, just by salary. Again, it's a 2-game slate, so there's not a ton of people I will be playing today in terms of a player pool. On a 2-game slate, I like to get my player pools locked down to somewhere around the 15 to 20 range. If you're playing GPPs, right around 15 for a 2-game slate is usually, I like to be sort of compressed in my player pool. You can go up to 18 and throw in a couple extra value plays to sprinkle in there. If you're playing just one lineup in GPP, single entry, or just throwing it into the GPP, maybe it's your cash lineup, then I probably like to get my player pool down to 15 and then do another kind of shrink down to about 10 and then kind of finish my lineup out, kind of use key stats, use defensive matchups, whatever you have to do to slowly sort it out. I'm going to imagine that I'll be doing today a podcast over on Patreon, exclusively shrinking my player pool down to about 15 to 20 for today. Again, the game starts at noon, so that podcast I will hopefully have out by about 10 a.m. today. Elena Delle Donne, obviously at $11,000. She's in a matchup that we already just mentioned, the pace, the overall point total. She is the best player on the floor in that game, and she is going to be the highest priced player on the slate today, which I disagree with Jonquil Jones on the slate, but I get it. She's been producing in the past 2 games over 40 on back-to-back, continues to see bigger minutes. She played Chicago earlier in the year, but she was still kind of on this 22-minute count from the first 2 games of the year. Nothing really to look into there. So yeah, Elena Delle Donne I obviously have interest in. On a slate where there's Jonquil Jones, there's Elena Delle Donne, I guess you can say that there's a Diamond DeShields. There's obviously Courtney Vandersloot. But if we're talking different tier of players, Elena Delle Donne, Jonquil Jones, and I would probably have Jonquil Jones over Elena Delle Donne. Maybe Jonquil Jones in her own tier of pretty much averaging, if she sees 30 minutes in the game, 40 plus fantasy points. But they're kind of in their own tier. So getting to both of them today is very interesting to me. I don't have interest in Courtney Vandersloot today personally. Diamond DeShields is who I would get to from that Chicago side of the ball in this game. I think you could fit all three of the players that I listed top here: Elena Delle Donne, Jonquil Jones, Diamond DeShields. I have not yet made a lineup. Again, it's like 5:30 in the morning. I started doing the analysis around 4:30 in the morning in terms of research for this and the MLB slate. So not dying to get there, but that's where I do have some interest. And again, you can see right now, the first 5 players that I list on this early interest list, and I have what on here? I have 9 players on here. Again, this is not my overall player pool. I just said that I'm going to be getting my player pool down to 15 or 20 on Patreon on a podcast later today. So this is just quickly what I see in terms of early interest. I didn't want to list the whole slate, and I didn't want to kind of force anybody in there that I didn't find interesting. So, Christy Tolliver is another player from this Washington-Chicago game. From the Washington side, she had success earlier in the year against Chicago. Again, she's $9,000. Her price is getting up there. She's probably appropriately priced now. I think we're kind of paying top dollar for her, but I don't think it's a bad thing. It's like her price is caught up to her production this year, and I don't think her production is going to fall off. Which is something like we've seen with Strickland, which we're about to get to. Stephanie Dolson, again, from this game on the Chicago side. She's too cheap. I think she's coming off a game where she didn't see too much run. Again, blowout run was factored into that. I'm not too worried about her minutes overall here. She's somebody who's averaging about 25 minutes per game. I believe I have her right above that today. So Stephanie Dolson, 7,900. It's just too cheap for her production in this game. Jasmine Thomas, we already touched on her. She's way too cheap. She's the person who's been getting the most benefit out of the minutes from Clarendon. Yes, you still have Rachel Bonham getting minutes, but in terms of just minutes that are going to be super meaningful for DFS, somebody going from low 20s to high 20s and potentially 30s is a big difference. That is Jasmine Thomas at $7,000 in the Connecticut-Dallas game. Should be sort of this next player from Connecticut that I would be wanting to get to after Jones. Okay, so now we have Strickland. Strickland is somebody that I was getting on the case of a lot of people for continuing to play because they thought that Strickland could continue to do this, and let's quickly go to it. And I'm sitting here every single day saying, no, she will not. And she continued to do it. And finally, she fell on her face. And it's going to continue to happen, sadly. So people thought that all of a sudden that Strickland was just automatically going to be this 50+% shooter from 3 all season long. Even 60+ some people, right? She shoots 44%. She shoots 40%. She shoots 43%. She shoots 50%. She shoots 80%. She shoots 50%. She shoots 63%. So she's averaging over 50% from 3 on the year, having a historic start to the year, and people think somehow that regression is not going to hit. Now look, it was one game. She shot 0 of 3 from 3, 0 of 5 overall. She got pulled only 15 minutes due to some of the blowout. 2 personal fouls early took her off the court. Overall, the minutes are not something that concerns me. The idea that people think that this person is going to continue to shoot 50+% from 3 all season long. Let's look at her point totals. Ready? 15 gets her 26 points. Okay. Cool. 12 gets her 18. 16 gets her 24. 16 gets her 29. 24 gets her 33. 0 gets her 1. So obviously if you score 0 real points, you're not going to do that well in fantasy. But what I'm trying to say here is she's very scoring dependent. She scored 24 points in this game, which was pretty much all of her fantasy points. All she did was get 3 rebounds, no other really peripherals. And she's had 21 of them come on the three-pointer. If you take into account that you get kind of extra points for that three-pointer, she had about 22.5 of her fantasy points out of her 33 coming on the three-pointer, right? 21 of her actual 24 points. The same trend, if you go down here, will kind of continue. She had 12 of her real points from 3. Yes, she's a 3-point shooter, Sal. What are you trying to get to? The fact that 3-point shooting is very variant, and when somebody continues to shoot 50 to 60% from 3 in a small 5 to 6 game sample size, that is not going to continue for the rest of the year. So when she was priced up at this $7,000 price point last game, she was clearly just overpriced one at her top dollar point too, and people were still flocking to it because they thought that that was something that was going to be continued when overall it's not. She falls on her face, she shoots 0 of 5, 0 of 3, she probably would have continued to shoot poorly in that game. That's just what regression is. Do I have interest in her today? Yes. Sal, how the hell do you have interest in her today? Well, now people will be off of her in tournaments. I don't have interest in cash because, look, she's similar to Klay Thompson, not in terms of how good she is, in terms of her role for DFS. Klay Thompson, yeah, he might pick up a rebound, but he really doesn't come within the 3-point line, and that's kind of how Strickland is. Like you saw right there, she's averaging like 1 or 2 rebounds a game, maybe an assist, maybe a steal, but for the most part, she's getting her points from pure scoring. That's not what I like to roster in cash, especially on a slate where, yeah, there's only 4 teams, but you could still find somebody in that $6,200 range who is going to be more stable for cash. Strickland clearly has the bigger ceiling, so yeah, I like Strickland in terms of GPP plays. I'm not going to say, no, you can't play her in cash because it is a 2-game WNBA slate where For the most part, a lot of players have variant minutes. Strickland's 15 minutes from the last game is more so due to blowout runs, so don't be worried about that. Have her projected for closer to 30 minutes once again today. Although, again, she's going to be very reliant on scoring. Has she been playing well this year in terms of overall shooting? Yes, but that's going to regress. I think instead of being this player who's averaging whatever she is at 20 points per game right now, she's probably going to fall somewhere around the 14 point per game, 12 point per game mark, which lowers her overall production a lot more, which means that right now she's probably still a little bit overpriced. I think she's about a $6,000 player instead of $6,200. Not a huge deal, but yeah, you could roster her in GPTs. She's fine in cash and probably just not going to get there. Isabel Harrison. So this is very interesting. She's $5,000 on the Dallas side of the ball. The only person on Dallas today that I have true interest in. Now, obviously, when I do the podcast later, I'll kind of sort down my player pool and most likely have another Dallas player in there if I have 15 to 20 players instead of these 9. But Harrison, she is a starter. She started like the first 5 or 6 games before she got injured. She did not start the last game. The last game was started by Plaisance, somebody that I had a lot of interest in. Not last game, but the games before that when Harrison was out. Harrison in the last game played 13 minutes. I believe Plaisance played 13 or 14 minutes. The interesting thing was that Plaisance still started. She only played about 1 to 2 minutes, and then Harrison came right in for her and played like the final 7 or 8 minutes of the first quarter. That's good to see. If Harrison jumps into the starting lineup, I have all the interest in the world at a $5,000 Isabel Harrison, who averages about league average in terms of point per minute production. Again, a very small sample since she got hurt of only like 5 games or so. But the 13 minutes for one Harrison, part of that is injury related. Part of that's coming off the bench. So like this is the WNBA. You have to remind yourself that there's only 40 minutes, not 48. So if somebody's coming off the bench who's usually a starter due to injury, they don't have as many opportunities like they do in the NBA to pick up extra minutes. There's 8 less minutes in the game overall, shorter rotations per quarter. So somebody who's picking up 15 minutes off the bench as their overall game, that might be 22 minutes in the NBA based on rotations, based on the length of the game, right? So it's much different. It's kind of good to look at. You can't just project that somebody's coming off the bench going to play 25 minutes because there's just not the time in the world for somebody to do that coming off the bench when most of the time the rotations for the starters are like 6 minutes in the first quarter. So it's really hard to kind of get that time made up. But the thing that was nice to see was that Harrison came in right after a minute or two. So if Harrison's back in the starting lineup, which if she's not this game, she probably will be next game, and I imagine she kind of will be this game. So again, at Wnba Dfs, you can check me out on Twitter. You can follow my WNBA list. But if she's back, she's going to be a big interest of mine. Right now, she doesn't pop all that much because I'm not giving her starters minutes. I'm giving her, I believe, somewhere around 18 to 20 minutes off the bench. I'm giving Plaisance only 14 minutes as a starter, as kind of a spot start. I have no interest in Plaisance. She is kind of, before Harrison got injured, she was sort of just this role player, and that's what I have her at as now with Harrison back. Next person I will touch on below $5,000 is Ariel Powers. Powers has now seen 2 games in a row right around 20 minutes. I have her projected there once again. This is mainly a pricing thing, and again, getting more action to that Washington-Chicago game. It's more of a value play in that game. I don't have her projected for 30 points. I don't have her projected for 25 points. I have her projected for a decent game at her price point of $4,900. Can she go back to playing 14, 16 minutes today? Yes, this coach is kind of a doofus, but if she does see right around her 20 minutes, and realistically, she should be seeing more minutes than that because she's a very good player, and she becomes a nice play at $4,900. This is sort of a risky play for cash. GPPs, I do like it, but again, you're not going to get too much value on a 2-game slate, especially in the Washington-Chicago game. So at $4,900, I am fine kind of getting there because it does allow you to do some other things. So that's where I'm at right now. There's obviously cheaper value that I am interested in if you want to see that and kind of hear about my player pool as I trim it down on a podcast. The game starts at noon, so I'll probably put that podcast up probably by 10. So yeah, head over to Patreon, link down below. You can support me there. If you watch this whole video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Both of those things take you 2 to 3 seconds. If this phone is in your pocket, if you're driving at a stoplight, whatever it takes, take the phone out of your pocket. Hit that subscribe button as long as you're being safe while you're driving. But yeah, I really appreciate that. It helps me grow this channel. And then down below, follow me on Twitter at SalVetryDFS. You can get some free strategy guides that are down below as well. You can go over to Patreon. My name's Sal. I hope everybody does really well today in the WNBA streets. Peace out, gang.